Welcome back. This is my video reflection of my pre-survey data and growth goals. So my growth goals, I actually had 5, but I'm going to show you 3. Element 1 is providing scales or rubrics because I felt on my evaluation that I was in the developing phase of this, and I want to improve. I do utilize proficiency scales, but I wanted to do better on reviewing the scale and being just more explicit on teaching each level, and that students could get comfortable enough to explain in their own words the proficiency scales and how to progress. So my evidence of growth, I plan on making a journal, a reflection journal that students will throughout the units. So we have 3 assessments. We have an interpersonal, a presentational, and an interpretive. And so throughout each of those state assessments, state-based, they will be having rubric and assessing how they do on those. So we will, show them what a below basic is, what a basic, what a proficient, and what an advanced is for each of those. And then they will be self-assessing where they think they fall, and then putting that in their journal. And then I will also assess them, and then we will compare the outcomes. Then my other element that I felt was developing is using informal assessments of the whole class. So again, we will establish a rating system on how students' confidence is, like if they feel pretty confident or not on the topic, and they'll rate their confidence level because I don't currently do that. So that will be part of that journal I was referring to in that first part. They will self-assess where they rate themselves. We'll practice the rubrics, but then in terms of the whole class, I'd like to show it in a graph, and that way it's less like it's not singling anybody out, it's showing the class as a whole. Anything else on that one? So I did ask if students seemed interested in knowing the entire class's progress. So I have data on that, and then just to see if they're pleased or not, whether the whole class improves. So I'm going to have that a question, and so I have a little bit of data later on too from that pre-survey. And then my third element that I feel like I'm still developing on is motivating and inspiring students. Let's see, so that I'm hoping to identify and set academic goals more explicitly in class. Give just students more opportunity and time to reflect, and so they're going to use their journal to do this. So I'm able to hit a couple birds with one stone by doing this reflection journal. And then the altruism portion, I don't feel like we do enough, that they can see something greater than themselves. And there's a portion of our state standards that connect to the community, and so I think that would tie in really well. But just to do it more explicitly, and they have some great ideas maybe that I don't think of. So there's a portion too that they could add gratitude in their journals. And so I did put that in over Thanksgiving because I thought that would be an appropriate time. And so that was kind of interesting results on that. Students practicing mindfulness and just setting those long-term goals. and steps that they can identify to help them improve throughout. We're doing, it's called PBIS, and it's a program our whole school does to try to help with bullying and such. And so our today's topic was empowerment and setting long-term goals and then the little steps to achieve it. So that's going to connect well with what we're doing in our class too. And then, yeah, like I said, connecting to the community. So evidence of this, again, we're going to use that journal and just a spot to connect to the community, offer gratitude, mindfulness, spot to mark their long-term goals and such. So, and then my two extra surveys were tracking student progress. Again, that's something I felt I was developing in. And so to do this, again, we're going to put that in their journal and then just have where they start and then hopefully see the improvement at the end of their units. And then finally was reflecting on learning, and I felt like I was developing in that area as well. So we can also have those reflection journals. I think that would do a good job to hit all of these things where I feel like I'm kind of in the middle or, yeah, could do better on in class. All right, so then I'm gonna jump to the data of the pre-surveys. So my element 1, providing scales and rubrics. My average, like the mean, were pretty high. My lowest was a 3.4 on question number 6, and my highest, well, like 3 of them were 4.4s. So I was like, I feel like maybe I was too critical of my assessment, and maybe I'm more innovating than I thought, than developing. So, and then in terms of the standard deviation, question number 4 was the things I do in class are designed to help me achieve the learning goal. And this averaged pretty high. It was a 4.4. And in terms of deviation, it was my lowest. It was a 0.5. So that's showing me a lot of students answered pretty high, like around the 4.4 range. So that's one where I was like, okay, the things in class, they feel like are helping them achieve their learning goal. So maybe I'm doing okay on these things. Element 4, data on this pre-survey. This is using informal assessments for the whole class. So number 2, for instance, was my teacher frequently gives the whole class quizzes and tests that are not for a grade. And so I don't know if I need that to be a 5. Like, is it okay that I don't quiz the whole class for a grade? But I guess the point of this question is to help make students aware that we do informal observations and assessments frequently as a whole. So one semantic question I have is frequently the word that's throwing them off? Like, is it because we don't do it frequently, or what's the definition of frequently? So maybe that explains why students average kind of a middle of the road answer for number 2. It was a 3.0 on their end. In terms of deviation, to springboard off my comment on the mean that we just talked about, they did seem to answer high on number 1. That was a 4.5 average. That was my teacher frequently asks questions of the whole class. So I guess I do ask, but students are answering differently when the part is for a grade is added. Like, I found that was interesting. Like, once you said for a grade, then I'm going to change my answer. So I don't know. That was interesting. Element 32, motivating and inspiring students. Number 6 was lower than I wanted it. That was my teacher lets me do projects that are important to me. And I feel like our goal as a language department is trying to incorporate more choice and options for the students. And the fact that they're answering that way I feel like they're not feeling like they have the choice or things that they're, but maybe it's just because it's things they can't relate to, because we're talking about chores in one unit, or we're talking about, well, family. Everyone should relate, but do they feel like it's important to be able to talk German about their family? Maybe not. I don't know. So that was just something that was interesting to me. And then for the deviation, number one was my teacher helps me identify the long-term goals. And I was surprised the students answered so tightly on that. The deviation was a 0.8. Um, and I thought I was weak in that and needed to be more explicit, but maybe this data is showing I'm doing okay on that. And then for my two extra ones, like tracking student progress, number 4 was I know how my class as a whole is progressing towards the learning goal. And it's almost to that innovating spot. It was a 3.96. But in terms of all the 6 questions, that was the lowest in some students' eyes. So anyway, it gives me something to think about, putting the class data out there as a whole for the whole class to see and then explicitly discuss. And then in terms of deviation, number 5 is my teacher scores my work fairly and my grades reflect my current levels of performance. And this had the lowest deviation, so to me that shows, if I'm understanding that correctly, many students consistently put nearly a 5 for me. That was question number 5, averaged a 4.7. The deviation was a 0.46, so it's showing me it's pretty close to 5 across the board. So that's nice to hear positive feedback on that. And then my last one, reflecting on learning, the averages were all 4 or higher. So I was really surprised. I thought that was one where I was a 3, and I was working on it, but how will I maintain that high performance or view of the students thinking I'm a 4 on that? For the end survey, like this is the pre-data, can I keep it up for the last survey? And then deviation-wise, number 4 is my teacher asked me to think about how hard I tried during class. And students rated this pretty high, average-wise, and most consistent in terms of the deviation as a whole in their responses, because the deviation was 0.597. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't think it would come out that high. So some good outcomes and challenges, and now I'm happy with the pre-data, but I'm worried I won't be able to finish that way. But we'll try. It's working well in class, though. I feel like the students are more aware, and I don't know if they're just being nice to me. Please still be nice to me. Okay, thank you for watching.